Let's look at the law of cosines. After going through the law of sines with the ambiguous case, you should really like the law of cosines. There's nothing weird about the law of cosines. It's just nice, clear, and simple. There's two things you can do with it. You can solve for a side, and you can solve for an angle. But the first thing you need to do is you need to put the law of cosines to memory. So if you wanted to, make it seem harder than it really is, you could think of it as three different versions. So these three things need to be in your memory. But basically, if you look at the structure of the first one, the bottom two just mimic it. See, the first part looks a whole lot like the Pythagorean theorem. And then it follows with -2, and notice these two letters right here are the same ones that are on this side, and then it's cosine of the letter that is on the other end. So the things on the ends match. So, and that's what you need to notice. If you're doing anything, if you're solving for side A or angle A, you need the top one. If you're solving for side B or angle B, you need the second one. And then solving for side C or angle C, you need the third one. Because what you're solving for is either going to be, the angle is going to be back here at the back, or the side is going to be here. So that's the clue. So it's either the letter here or the angle here that you want. Okay, but you do need to put those to memory. Okay, we're going to start with the simplest kind first. You do need a calculator, and it does need to be in degrees. All right, the easiest way is to find a side. So I'm going to give you an angle. And yeah, I don't have the degree symbols because they're kind of hard to type. So yeah, it's 34 degrees. So if I give you angle A, that means we're using the A version. So it says find A. So that means A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2. And remember, it's these two letters. And then cosine of A. So if you will make a habit of writing your formula every time that you solve a problem, by the time we're done with this lesson, you will know your formula. You won't have any trouble. Okay, let's plug in what you know. So now remember, your squares go outside there, okay? So go ahead and set this thing up. Okay, no, that just stays A squared. We have the 34, comes down here for the angle. Now B is 13, C is 9, so do it again. 13 and 9. Now, keep in mind, these squares are imperative that you have the squares in the right place. Basically, you take this line right here, and you're going to type it in your calculator. 13 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 13 times 9 times cosine of 34. Now, let me make sure, yep, I'm on degrees. I got 56.0052, and that's what was completely on my screen. But that's not my answer, because if you notice, this thing says A squared. I don't want A squared, I want A. So don't forget, and this is what a lot of students forget when I start grading papers, is you do have to do the square root, okay? Take the square root of your answer. So you remember how to do answer second negative, and that gives me 7.5. Okay, so there we go. You have found side A, which is the only thing that you were asked for. That's all there is to the law of cosines. So let's practice for the next one. This one just says find all missing pieces. We're not going to do that. We're not ready for it yet. I haven't shown you how to do the angles. So let's just do, since I gave you A, let's do find. It won't write. There we go. Let's find A. Okay. So we've got A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of A. All right. Put in. Well, basically, you just got to do a prep stage. This is like prepping when you're cooking. You gotta prepare, and then you do the easy stuff. Go in and put in all of your information. And your angle was 65. Now, once you have that done, it's time to type 23 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 23 times 30 times cosine 65. Okay, now I got 845.786 blah 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 blah. And it keeps going. But remember, I need to do the square root. So square root my answer and let your calculator pull that up. So tell your calculator to do the ANS thing. Alright, that becomes 29.1. Okay, but they rounded to the nearest integer, so I need to do the same thing. So let me just do 29. So we're keeping the same format. Okay. I think you've got the idea. The only reason I want to do this next one is just to verify that you're good with structure. We'll run it through. This one says we're not going to find all sides. We're going to find C because I gave you angle C. So that means C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. So this is the only reason I wanted to do it, because we have a little variation. So C squared equals, and then prep. And then come back in and stick in your information. And then it's typing time. 8 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 8 times 12 times cosine 55. And we come up with 97.87, and you can write down as many decimals as you want because that's not the final thing. Looks like we need to go to integers from what I've got up there. Square root of my answer, and this thing rounds to 10. Okay, so that's all there is to finding a side. Now let's do the other way. We're going to find an angle. This is slightly more difficult, but not much. So this one right here, let's find, we haven't done anything with B, so let's find angle B, okay? If we find angle B, that means I need to have little b over here. So that's going to be A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine of B. All right, let's put all our goody in here. B squared, I actually know that. I shouldn't put that in just yet, should I? Let me finish preparing. Otherwise, if you try to put it in as you go, you end up with kind of like a headache. All right, now let's see here. A was, what, 13? And C is 10, so 13, 10. Those are repetitive, okay, if you'll pick up on that pattern. Now, here's the thing, and this is where, as a teacher and grading papers all the time, the biggest mistake that kids make is they want to put all of this together. And you can't. Because by order of operations, all of this is one term because it's all multiplied together. The only way to break up this term is to divide this portion off. These two terms can be moved to the other side separately. But you cannot combine all of those numbers from the front. So we have to work separately. Now the easiest thing to do is use your calculator, and I'm just going to think of it like this. You're moving these two over. So if you will type 12 squared, and you are subtracting 13 squared, and you are subtracting 10 squared, you will get a negative 125. So those two have been moved to the other side. Now I need to know what this product is. So 2 times 13 times 10. Alright, but that's negative because there's a negative here. So negative 260. And I still have a cosine B as part of that product. Okay, is everybody good with that? Now, since both of these are negative, you can reduce the negatives and not deal with them anymore. We need to divide by 260 on both sides, because now that portion can go out. So I got 125. Well, I tell you what, instead of doing that, think of it this way. Don't we now have cosine B? And we have 125 over 260. We can do inverse cosine, and now we can just type in that fraction, and we don't have to keep up with decimals. 125 divided by 260. And that's going to give me angle B right there. 61 degrees. We've got it. That's all there is to finding an angle. Now let's do another one. Okay. So on this one, let's just I'm going to take this part out. Let's take this problem here at the top and let's solve the triangle. So let's find all the angles. Now, technically, if I'm saying find all the angles, doesn't that mean I'm finding 2 of them? Now, if we want to be smart about it, let's find the smallest one first. So, c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. And the reason I say find the smallest first, you tend to have fewer errors and fewer discrepancies in your answers if you will work from the smallest angle to the largest angle. So let's put in our information. We have 6 squared. And if you didn't want to do the prep stage, you can do it like this if you want to. It's just a different option. 2 times, what is this, 9, and then 8, and then cosine c, because I don't know it. Okay, remember, these two are going over. And if it helps you to draw those, then draw them. 6 squared minus 9 squared minus 8 squared. All right, so a negative 109. And then I have 2 times 9 times 8. Just remember that it's negative. So the negatives go away. And what you have is 109 over 144 is equal to cosine c. So you have to do the inverse cosine of that crazy fraction. And that will give you your first angle, which when you round it, that's good because I got 40.8. Go ahead and round it to 41. So I got 41 degrees. All right, let's do it again. And let's just keep using law of cosines. Next side that's in size, or next angle in size, is angle B. So b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of b. So that would be 8 squared, 9 squared, 6 squared, 2 times 9 times 6 cosine of b. All right, here goes. 8 squared minus 9 squared minus 6 squared. Writing this down is a negative 53. So 2 times 9 times 6 is a negative 108 cosine of b. Divide by negative 108. So you kind of have to get your own personal flow and style of how are you going to handle this little situation here. I've given you several options, but this is going to be inverse cosine of 53 divided by 108. And again, it's 61. It's kind of weird. So 61 for, oops, that's actually b, isn't it? So I don't need the cosine. All right, so I don't need to do law of cosines again. I can do 180 minus 61 minus 41. Okay, we can wrap this up. I thought that had been repetitive, but it's not. It's 41 and 61, and when you subtract them out, I get 78. And we had all those 3 sides to start with. So there's law of cosines. I hope you enjoy it because it's really not that difficult. There's no ambiguity to it. So have fun.